started off as a PG podcast, but then Devin just kept on dropping shits and fucks, and now...
That's right. We are live.
The ghost faced himself, Brandon Tanev.
This isn't like the start of last season when it was just, it looked like the Canucks were just a beer league team not playing defense at all. And just before Chris goes, no, I'm kidding, Chris, you can actually go now.
no, hold on.
Oh, we had to give more time for coming on late. So.
I still had, hold on. All right. Chris, go, and then I got something else to say at the end.
So, an elf and a midget in 2 back-to-back games. Yeah, he's definitely on a friendship tour for sure.
Think, oh yeah, I'm okay with him being, the 6'7" defenseman. No! He is a AHL defenseman right now.
Look, Shonky, don't mind Devin, okay? We all struggle with Devin, so you know.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Shifts and Pucks podcast. Of course, you can follow us on Twitter at Shifts and Pucks. We are live on Twitter right now at Shifts and Pucks, Facebook.com Shifts and Pucks, YouTube.com Shifts and Pucks, Twitch.com Shifts and Pucks. Subscribe wherever you get your audio, as well as on the Area 51 Sports Network, as we are here after a 4-1 Vancouver Canucks loss to the St. Louis Blues. We'll discuss if that dents any playoff chances or not. It's first of 2 between the two teams. We'll get into that. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, put them in the chat. We will get to them. Hit a big good old like on all of our stuff. Subscribe as well. We would appreciate that. It's a historic night here for one Chris Schneider. Hello, Chris.
Hello, Kevin.
I don't want to go ahead.
I was going to say, it's a little bit. Well, this is the last podcast I will be doing from this house. The next time you see me, I will be in Kelowna.
There we go. Moving as we slowly encourage the Shift and Pucks podcast team to move to the proper side of the Rockies. Right, Tyler?
Yes. Yeah. The Pacific time zone, the sensible time zone, the more beautiful province. Let's go down the list of the benefits.
And to lean into
Chris, you and Hannah decided to pick one of the more expensive places to live. So Godspeed to you with that.
Is there a non-expensive place to live in BC, though? Really?
It's not. Well, it's not that cheap here, I guess, either these days. But it's.
I would argue it's of the larger population spots in BC. It is the cheapest for the largest population.
There you go.
Fair.
You struck a balance.
Fair. Sean, as the lone Albertan, how are you today?
I'm doing all right.
We have some breaking news here.
Yeah, actually. we've got some sad breaking news here. I don't want to. The Ottawa Senators have announced that Eugene Melynk has passed away.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Ooh, wow.
Yeah. Just to read the tweet, it is with great sadness that the family of Eugene Melynk and the Ottawa Senators hockey organization announces passing on March 28, 2022, after an illness he faced with determination and courage. And he was the brunt of many jokes for the Ottawa Senators for many years. We cannot get past that. That happened. Just, I think, a very difficult time for the Ottawa Senators fan base and Ottawa Senators family and the Melynk family. Like him or not, he contributed to the community, and this is a very sad day here. So absolutely need to pay him the respect.
Mm-hmm. Condolences to the family, loving father to Anna and Olivia. Just reading a release from the Senators here. Devoted son to Vera and the late Dr. Ferdinand Melynk, caring brother and a loving companion to Sherry Lynn. He died peacefully surrounded by his family today, they say. Yes. Rest in peace, Eugene Melynk. Big loss for the hockey community tonight.
Yeah. That's that's
we
very
were not
sad.
prepared for this when we came on the air.
No, jeez, that's.
That sucks.
It came up, and I was like frantically looking for that check mark because
you wanted to make sure you didn't get kicked out.
And it's just like as you said, Kev. Yeah, he was the brunt of a lot of jokes, and he didn't have the best relationship with Senators fans and the community in the past few years, but he still kept the Senators there, and he still tried to do what he thought was best. And it just comes out of nowhere because I didn't know he was fighting anything.
I guess he was trying to keep that fairly private. Then would be the assumption.
Yeah, because I don't recall any media conversation with Eugene Melynk for at least nothing this season, nothing last season. I almost don't think we heard from him
The
since...
last thing I specifically recall was his comments about trying to get a new arena. And I think that was probably like a year and a half, maybe 2 years back, near the start of the pandemic.
I want to say the last I heard from him was when he did the interview with Mark Borowecki.
I think he did. There was a couple other things after that, but owners don't talk a lot, anyways.
No.
And I think there's, like, if we're gonna bring this back, try and reel this back into the Canucks, I feel like there's an unfair expectation on Aquilini to be more in the media than he is. And when you look across the board, is there, especially in the NHL, is there an owner that is out there being outspoken and then you?
Well, across the sports world, there's Jerry Jones, but that's kind of an exception.
Jerry Jones, Mark Cuban.
Yeah.
There's, in terms of hockey, in terms of what Aquilini tweets out every once in a while, that's really it. So just, condolences to the Ottawa Senators and everyone involved there. Like that's quite a shocking piece of news here.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. But we'll move on here. We'll move on with the memory of Eugene Melynk and with that respect in mind. But the Canucks did lose tonight, 4-1. That puts them. I don't know where you put this in terms of percentages wise. They're still 3 points behind the Vegas Golden Knights, 4 points behind the Oilers in the Pacific for if you want to go as far as third. Did anyone have any comments on the game? Maybe let's start there.
It just was one where the Canucks were never able to gain some momentum, never able to build some confidence. And the one thing more and more I watched this team, even after the Boudreau takeover, was they're a fragile. They're not a confident team. They played almost half the season just getting shelled and not playing way below their skill level and their potential, and they just don't have that ingrained confidence that all the top teams do right now.
Yeah, we got this factor when you're battling behind by a couple goals.
And so when you have Halak give up a very weird goal to start the game, they just were never able to build up enough confidence to put together a strong enough push. Husso played well. Canucks kept giving up a couple some odd man rushes because they were chasing the game. But they still had their chances. I don't think this is something that you should be writing them off at this point. This is a game where they guess what? They go home and they've got the St. Louis Blues on Wednesday again. And they can get some revenge here. And honestly, even though it was a very tough road trip, they go 2-1-1.
Yeah.
So they didn't get a point in one game. And that's what they need to do going forwards.
And considering the opponents on this, that's actually fairly impressive.
Yes. And I think we have to remember that. And yes, you can get all sort of wrapped up in these percentages and these playoff chance models and everything.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck them. Honestly, fuck those models. Watch the games. Enjoy this run. We're watching a team that we thought was this is the team that we thought we had at the beginning of the season that just completely underperformed. Look at the penalty kill now. What they've done, killed 20 out of the last 22.
Mm-hmm.
There's something here, and if they cannot, but they have to avoid losing multiple games in a row. They have to find a way to get points in as many games as possible going forwards, and they did that on this road trip, and they have to continue that going forwards. And if they do, then the playoffs are a possibility. They may not be a great possibility at this point, but it's still a possibility, and we should be cheering for that. We should be hoping for that. We shouldn't be going team tank here. I'm sorry. Fuck team tank.
Are there a lot of people on the team tank?
Not quite
maybe
yet,
I'm just being ignorant here about this, but yeah, I mean, as we get closer to the end, that discussion will sort of bear itself out, I think, naturally. But yeah, I mean, the Brad Hunt goal tonight, the lone goal for the Canucks, I mean, that was impressive. But really, just to what you talked about, Sean, when you have I don't know if stinky goal is the right term in this case, but when you have a goal like that early on that puts you behind, the feeling of doom just kind of comes across the whole team. It just and then you give up a second one, and you kind of tell end of the road trip, yeah, I don't think we're winning tonight.
I don't think it's team tank. I don't think it's that far, but I think that there's a team sell.
Yeah, but we're past the deadline here.
I know, Sean, but there's still this belief.
Once you're past the deadline, team sell becomes team tank.
Yeah, and I think if they were to really fall out of it, I think it would give more definition to what the strategy should be in the off season. And for the sell people, if you fall just a point short, maybe that muddies the plan a little bit. Is that kind of what you're getting at, Kev?
I think what I'm reading is that even if this team makes the playoffs, they're not going to win a round. So what's the point?
Well, I mean, don't make me go on about losing.
No, I actually kind of want you to, because I'm with you.
Why do we friggin' play then?
Yeah, I'm with you. To me, and this is where I'll
where I stand on this.
No, because I'll back you on it. To me, it's frustrating because we have seen teams from 8th place positions win Stanley Cups. We've seen it happens. And I'm not saying the Vancouver Canucks get into the playoffs are going to win the Stanley Cup. But for the love of God, why do you not want your team to win? What is this whole... Let me go on a rant here, and I'm going to probably piss some people off. This whole window thing that everybody keeps talking about is mostly bullshit. If you actually have studied the winners of the Stanley Cup, it has been very rare that a team has built a contender in the exact window that every single one of these modelists, graphists, all of these guys, all of these people doing this has led to believe. Look at this, the team that the Canucks played tonight, the St. Louis Blues.
Mm-hmm.
They pretty much were in last place overall in the first half of the season. And then they turned it around and they won the Stanley Cup. The Nashville Predators went from 8th place to a Stanley Cup final. We keep using this window thing. If we build exactly like this, we can win the cup in the year 2026. That's not going to work. It never has, and it never, ever, 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 ever will. I guarantee it.
The only way it works is if you have pure You absolutely have a generational player like a Crosby, and you nail everything right. You get everything right. There's nothing, even if you have mistakes, you immediately make up for them. And the whole like I've gone through this before. The average age of cup winning teams, if you take out the anomalies of the Crosby led Penguins and the young Hawks, they're older teams. They're late 20s teams. And that's what it is. And the other thing is progression matters. Progression fucking matters. You have to progress. You can't just be bad until you hit your window and then you can win. No, you have to continue to progress. The Penguins had to learn how to win in the playoffs. The Hawks had to learn how to win in the playoffs. And the Caps, the Blues, they all went through that.
The Canucks from 2006 to 2009, 2008, 2009, 2010. The Lightning, exactly.
Yeah. You have to, and you can't just say, well, what's the point? The point is experience and progression. Experience and progression matter. You need to be cheering for this team to go as far as they can, because the better that makes Quinn Hughes better, that makes Elias Pettersson better, that makes Höglander better, that makes Podkolzin better, that makes Demko better.
The other thing
is the core of this team.
Hope and belief too, right? It's not just for the fans; it's for the team itself. It's for potential free agents you might be chasing. I mean, if you're just throwing the towel in on the season and with 10 games left because we don't think we're going to win the first round anyways. I mean, how are you supposed to run a friggin' professional sports operation like that?
And
I'm going to use a quote from Herman Edwards of the New York Jets back in the day. You play to win the game.
Yeah.
You should cheer for your team to win the game. Like if we're talking about the last like 5 games and they're out of the playoffs, sure, why not? Team tank, let's go. But they're in it. Cheer for it.
The fact that they got themselves from where they were at 8 and 20 something games when Green got fired to where they are now. They are actually 5-6 games above 500.
5, yeah.
A pretty impressive swing in the same season. Sure, it's not St. Louis Blues in 2019 good, but obviously St. Louis had a special thing going on that season that allowed that to happen, because it's very rare that you can out-Bruin the Bruins in the Stanley Cup final.
Yeah, and we should remind everybody, again, if you missed the playoffs, the first round is determined by a lottery. Okay? Yeah. There is the lottery. It is a lottery. It is not anything certain. That's number one. And number two, if you really want to solve the problem around whether we should tank or not, how about just draft and develop and manage your team better? Yeah. I mean, the Canucks have cleaned house. Let's give this group a chance. Just see how the season plays out and see how Jim Rutherford and his shiny new front office with all these great hockey minds, see what they can do in the offseason. Then let's revisit the idea of whether they should be in a tank phase or not.
They also want to properly evaluate the team as well. You don't want to intentionally lose to get a better draft pick that you're not guaranteed, like Tyler just brought up, when you have a new management group that is trying to properly evaluate the team and try and figure out how they want to chart us to a contending team.
I would get this if Jim Benning and Travis Green were still around and, they were scuffling and, realistically they're not going to make the playoffs. Okay, yes, then it's a bit more of a scenario where you want to kind of drop the bomb on the thing and go in a different direction. They're already going in a different direction. They got a new management group in place. They got a new coach. Mm-hmm. Just let it ride, guys.
I have the confidence in Rutherford and Alvin and that management group that they know that no matter what happens this season with the cap and everything that they have to deal with, there's going to be major changes to this roster in this offseason. And as much as I like Brock Besser, I don't see him in a Canucks jersey to start next season, because I think they're going to be looking for more speed on the wings, because that is what brought the Penguins success. And Kev, you've used this comparison before, in that Sidney Crosby is the most talented grinder in the game, and when Elias Pettersson is on his game, he plays a very similar style, where he is a very, very skilled grinder. He works his ass off, 200-foot game, and he's going to make an impact in all three zones, even if he doesn't score. And he did that. He did a little bit of that tonight. Not anywhere near what we want from him, sort of consistently, but he was still. You could still see that, and you can add some more speed on the wings, and you can sort of figure out what this blue line looks like going forwards. I don't think this team's as far off as many people are making it out to be, but they still need to make some bold moves to make that happen, and don't think they're scared to do so.
Yeah, and specifically to bold moves, you brought up Besser, Sean. Bold moves has to include some material change to the core. We've been on this, I think, is in this group here for a couple of years now, where people like the core and they love the players and their character guys and everything, but there has to be on the table some significant change to the core of the team. I think is necessary if they really want to get serious about being a contender. But that is for the off season. Let's see how they finish it out here.
Let's be honest here. Like, if they have indeed decided that they may want to keep Miller long term just because of all the intangibles he brings, if you're not wanting to get rid of Petey, Quinn, or Demko, then Besser is your most highly valued trade chip.
Yeah.
So
or you got to look at Garland or Horvat or some other guys there. But yeah, you can't keep everybody if you want to make a fairly meaningful change.
Well, let's go there. Now that we've pissed off all the team cell, team tank, or whatever. Now they're all angry at us, but that's okay.
They're angry anyways, Kevin.
That's fine. That's true. But let's start with one thing that we did not say that I think is one of the things that I was thinking about is the one thing that Canucks have. I think that they're top heavy. I would agree with that. I think that there's high level talent, and there's not really a lot of that middle part needs some work, I think. But the one thing that they have that I don't think a lot of teams have, and I think that this is the part of the conversation that I want to make sure that we establish here. They have a world-class and stable starting goaltender. There are, I would say, 10 teams that can say that right now, truly in the National Hockey League, that they have a world-class, elite. Goaltending is not the problem on their team. And the Vancouver Canucks are one of them. And I think that is an advantage. And especially when you look at how much you're paying said world-class goaltender, elite goaltender. And Thatcher Demko is, if he's not in your top 5, he should be damn close to your top 5. Wherever he is, that's your decision. But that's something you have to be able to take advantage of at this point. And to me, this starts with what I think one of the conversations, Chris, you brought up the most value, the question, J.T. Miller. Elliot Friedman and Donnie and Dolly said today that J.T. Miller is going to want Mika Zibanejad money. We put that out as a poll today, $8.5 million. And I guess that's the question. Do you pay J.T. Miller $8.5 million?
It's the obvious answer is for how many years, right? I think for right now, yes, I think it's a pretty easy decision. He's worth that, but we're going to see this JT Miller in the future. That's always the question, and the frightening part about free agency.
And you also don't know where the drop off is for Miller either. So, like, he could be great for the next 3 years, but what if he drops off significantly after that? And if you give him 7 years or 8 years, which is likely what his agent's gunning for, yeah, you kind of handcuff yourself.
And that's the biggest issue right now is he is late 20s, and I don't like giving late 20s players 7-8 year deals. I don't think it is a smart business in the hockey world, but I know we sort of poo-pooed the window idea. When do you think the Canucks can be contending for the cup here? Is it within 2-3 years? And do you need J.T. Miller? Then do you take that risk and see if that works?
I would probably I agree 8 is too much. I don't know. I think 5 and 8. I would visit it. I mean, it answers that question. To answer your question, Sean, I think that this window is here because, like, the air quote window, the opportunity is here. Let's look at the other team that we talk about on this podcast. The Calgary Flames is not exactly doing any developing and found some sort of window here. We're not. No, that did not happen. Like, you just look at, if you think that happened, I think that you're looking at this through revisionist history eyes. They made a few trades. They hired Daryl Sutter, and they turned it around. They didn't draft and develop. They've done some drafting, some developing, yes, but it's not.
We've seen two or three players from that.
All they did was they Sutterized the lineup that was the 2019 Western Conference #1 team. They just Sutterized that lineup. That's all they did.
Basically, and improved their goaltending significantly as well.
Yep.
I mean, there's that. But it's not like they blew the whole thing up. It's the same general manager.
Yep, exactly. And you look at the Colorado Avalanche, as impressive as everyone is about that team. They haven't been past the second round. They haven't done a lot of things here. They're in that. They're losing. They're learning how to win here.
Yeah. At least they've made it past the first round, and unlike some other teams here.
Yeah.
That's something. And to get back to Miller too, we've talked about this with Tkachuk. And this is on Rutherford and Alvin to sell him on this.
Yeah.
If they feel that they can win in 2 to 3 years, then and they can sell Miller on that, and he wants to be a leader on that team that can potentially go deep in the playoffs. Guess what? Guess what you need to do as a player? You need to take $500,000 off a contract here for that, because otherwise that extra if you can get a couple players to take an extra $500,000, that's a player.
Yep.
That can add depth to your lineup that you need to go to be good in this league and to go deep in the playoffs. So I've been very critical and harsh and blunt with Matthew Tkachuk. I'm gonna be the exact same thing with JT Miller here. If you
I agree with you, Sean. But what I would say as a counterpoint, though, is you have to find that balance between whether you are making him cut back on term, and then you have to give him the extra AAV. But I also get where you're coming from as far as like the whole like home team discount sort of thing that like the Sedins were famous for doing back with that.
It's not even home team discount. It's like, if you want to be a leader on this team, and you want to be able to help this team take that next step, you have to find a way to take some money off that AAV, off that cap hit, to help build a stronger lineup down through the lineup. Because this is a hard cap system where there's only a limited amount of money available. And if you actually want to fucking win, you need to be able to do that and be willing to do that. And if you don't, that's detrimental to the team.
Especially in an era where most playoff teams are pretty cap strapped.
Yeah, and to me, this is where I'm currently seeing JT Miller. Like, he's in terms of an intense, like, this is a guy that you're using in not only offensive situations, he's becoming a matchup guy. That him, Garland and Pearson tonight, when they were on the ice, they were in control of the game. They spent, I mean, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm going to assume it was a pretty high chunk of time in the offensive zone there. I would argue, and I asked, maybe I'll ask this, and maybe I'll push the controversy here to just a little bit. Why not? Would you rather have J.T. Miller or Leon Draisaitl?
It's Draisaitl, but it's not as big a landslide as people would think.
Yeah, I think you got to go with Draisaitl there, but
just off of pure offense alone, yeah.
But in terms of how they're sort of looked at in the game, stature-wise, I mean, Draisaitl's quite far ahead of J.T. Miller, and to Sean's point, I don't know if that's fair. Like in terms of what they bring to a hockey team, it's probably a lot closer than what people think.
Like for me, it depends on the context of how the team is built around those players. Like if you just need a sniper, then yeah, it's Draisaitl, hands down. But if you need like that guy that's going to throw the team on his back, like Justin Williams style, and be clutch, I would go Miller.
Yeah, that's where I point. I see J.T. Miller as a guy that you can put. He is, to Sean's point, he is willing. There's very clearly to me with J.T. Miller, there is a guy this is a guy that wants to lead a team. This is a guy that is playing like he wants to wear that C on the chest. He is acting like he is the captain of this team. Then to me, I think that is damn hard to get rid of. You want to trade him. I don't know if you would get the player, like you would have to, it's hard to win on that trade. You got I was thinking about there's maybe 4 prospects right now that I would be like, yeah, this is the guy that I would want for JT Miller. Like one of them would be Dylan's Mason McTavish. That would be a guy, like if Mason McTavish was in a trade option, maybe, but you would need to make sure that you get a guy that is a fabric type of future. And I think that's the other part about this is I don't know if you can get enough for what JT Miller brings.
Yeah. Well, and you have to remember too, of course, is that they got JT Miller by dealing a first-round draft pick in that transaction. So there's a lot riding on the for the future of the organization and making a move like that. With the term "drive the bus" is the one that I would use with JT Miller, and that kind of leadership's needed on every team, even if he's not the captain. You need that guy that brings the intensity and sort of it just pushes everybody else along, I guess, is the best way of putting it. And JT Miller is that kind of guy, and if you don't have him there, it makes you wonder where the Canucks would be.
Also, this is a slight aside, but I just want to say the whole Horvat versus Miller, who's the actual captain or who's the leader on the team, is bullshit. Because look at like a team like the Penguins. Like Gino is probably just as much a leader in the room as Sidney is, or maybe not to the same degree, but like they're both leaders in that room. They both are capable of throwing the team on their back and leading the team for bits and pieces.
Yeah, I mean, even go back 10 years to the Canucks when they were a Stanley Cup contender. I mean, Ryan Kessler was that driver of the bus, I would say, more than the Sedins were, even though all of them were putting up great numbers and providing great leadership.
Yeah, so this whole contention thing between the two, I think, is stupid, and we need to drop that conversation.
There's a good balance between the two, and you go down to Tampa. Yeah. You got Steven Stamkos, who's a very quiet leader as well. But who's the player that stirs the drink down there? Who drives the bus down there? It's Braden Point.
Yeah.
Yep.
And you need that. And then let alone you got Victor Hedman, who's probably a very strong leader in that locker room too. Yeah. You need multiple leaders to be a successful hockey team. And this idea where it's one or the other, it's having both, I think is a strength for the Canucks here.
Yep.
Now, that being said, all of this, where do we see Bo back with the team? Like, what is your percentage with it? I mean, if you're...
I'd put it 60% he's back versus 40% not back. I would
put it higher.
You think more like 70% back?
Yeah,
I mean, it's definitely got to be on the table if they have a good offer for Horvat to consider pulling the trigger on that and feeling like they've still got some good leadership in place. But I think the odds are he's going to be back.
Yeah, I would put myself personally in like the 70 to 80% count. But like you said, like you have to still answer the phone. I'd hear offers, but I wouldn't be actively like searching something else for Bo.
What the other thing is Bo going to be getting a significant raise on his next deal?
Well,
I don't think so.
Yeah, and there's the one side for the one thing about Horvat is he would take a pay cut to stay in Vancouver.
It's that Sedin sort of mentorship factor. I feel that he would.
That being said, he doesn't have the counting stats to the goals and assists to command much more than he has now.
Would you put him in the the Backlund sphere in terms of Ryan Nugent Hopkins kind of sphere of salary?
What's Nuge making? Because Backlund's what, 5 something?
Yeah.
For me,
that's what Bo's making now.
Yeah. Horvat's like 5'5" right now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I personally would probably put my limit for what I'd offer, what I'd be comfortable with giving Horvat is probably 6, maybe 6 1/4. Like he's not going to.
Hopkins took a pay cut to stay in Edmonton.
Yeah, I did.
His last contract that ended last season was $6 million, and now his new contract is 8 years times 5.125, and I could see the Canucks going long term and a lower cap hit to keep Bo. And I'm not a fan of doing that in terms of that. I don't think that in today's hot day and age, I think there's a 4 to 5 year window when you're in your 24, 25 into your early 30s. So 6 years, 5-6 year window. But after that, it's a bit more of a crapshoot. And Bo is getting a little bit older here. Like, he's been around the block, unfortunately.
He's the only person on the roster right now that was here when Brad Richardson was originally a Canuck.
Yeah. When his contract is up, he's going to be 27, 28. He'll be 28. When his contract is up. So are you going to sign him up till he's 36? But that's also the same thing with J.T. Miller. When his contract is up, he's going to be in his 30s. Mm-hmm. That's why I don't think he's going to get that 8 years. And if you're going to sign him for 5 years, that's still a lot. That's the biggest issue with J.T. Miller. They got a steal of a deal for him, but it was just in the raw. They couldn't put the team around him to help to make sure that those seasons were really good seasons.
If Benning's timeline was actually what he wanted in his head turned into reality, then sure, that would have been a good move as far as timing wise. But because he mentally was like 2 years ahead of where the team actually was, that's why we have this kind of off-kilter timing.
And not to read too much between the lines of the coach's comments in the media, but I get the feeling like J.T. Miller is a Bruce Boudreau guy. Like, there is no doubting.
Considering his point streak, I think the numbers speak for themselves.
Yeah. Contrast that with Niels Höglander probably not being right now a Bruce Boudreau guy, but and if the plan is to keep Boudreau as the coach, then that'll influence the decision as well, I would think.
And I would also counterpoint that with this is also Höglander's sophomore slump.
Mm-hmm. He's still figuring it out. I think he was rushed, and I think there is legit. I think there's a good talk about whether or not they rushed him. Mm-hmm. But he's still going to. I have no doubts that he's going to figure it out, and I have no doubts that maybe come this time next season, Höglander could. I wouldn't be surprised if Höglander is a Bruce Boudreau guy.
Yeah, give
same with
like a full off season, full training camp with him. Yeah, he might be able to mold him into closer to what he thinks Höglander is capable of.
Oh, I think the biggest Boudreau's biggest frustration with Höglander is just he wasn't able to capitalize on the opportunities he had. Because that every comment and soundbite and that I watched and listened to from Boudreau about him, it's just he was frustrated because it's like he has to find a way to score.
Yeah,
find a way to capitalize on the opportunities he's creating and he's getting. I don't see him being an issue. Like I said, but going forwards in next season and longer, like that's why the Miller conversation is so interesting. Is that like it's not like he's a UFA this year, right? Where you're like you had to make a decision.
Yeah, you don't need to make any contract offer at this point to JT Miller. And you don't really need to trade. You don't need to make a decision on trading him right now.
I mean, I would like to see them make a conscious effort to be a little more proactive than the last regime this offseason and figuring out what that contract looks like for JT Miller. And if they don't like it, then yes, maybe you have to move on.
Sure.
And it's and then the same thing with Brock Besser. And because you have to find a way to not lose players for nothing. You have to find a way to continue to progress forwards, which is why making sure that this team goes as far as they can this season. They have to find a way to progress. They have to find a way to develop the players that they currently have, whether it is Podkolzin, whether it is Garland, whether it is Horvat, Besser, Petey, Hughes, Dermott, Demko. They have to find a way to those players have to progress. So players have to develop, and the team has to progress and develop, and that's why. And I just look at it and go, but I also again like I trust this management group to know that they understand the cap, they understand the fact that this might be JT Miller's absolute peak. And you have to find a way to capitalize on it, whether it is to get him signed to a decent deal or to get assets for him. And you have to understand what you want the team to look like going forwards, too.
Yeah.
Go back to the deadline. They moved out Travis Hominick, who was older, slower defenseman. B, someone who I think was a contentious player in the locker room. Is a contentious player in the market for sure, but I don't think we realized how contentious he was in the room. And then they brought in Travis Dermott, who's younger and faster. They want speed, and if you don't have it, watch out.
And more versatile as well.
Yeah, and as much as I think Chandler Pearson is someone who's underappreciated in the market, he's not necessarily fleet of foot. Maybe they can sell high on him in the offseason too. But you look at how this team's going so far under Boudreau. Why can't they make this run? Why can't they make this improbable run?
Dylan has a question, and I think we it's an interesting question. Equal contract, 8.5 by 6. Would you rather Miller or Kadri? I would go Miller.
With the intangibles that Miller brings, I have to go Miller.
I like Kadri. I think he's grown up a lot, but I just need to see a little bit more, and I don't quite see that yet, and I would go Miller.
Yeah, I would say Miller's more 3-dimensional and Kadri's more 1-ish dimensional.
Kadri's 31. He'll turn 32 before next season starts. While Miller is 20. He's just about to turn 30.
For me, it's kind of flip a coin, but the age thing would move the needle in the direction of Miller for me too.
Yeah.
Sorry, he just turned 29. He'll be 30. He'll be 30 by the time he signs his next contract kicking in.
Yeah.
So also, just for those who joined us late, we did touch on this at the start. Lucas points this out. It's a sad day for the hockey world. The site, this being a Canucks feed. Thoughts and condolences to the center and organization of the passing of team owner Eugene Melynk. We did talk about that at the beginning of the podcast as it broke just as we were starting. So thank you, Lucas. We are thinking about Eugene as well. Lucas, a pal of mine in the podcast as well. But I know that I feel like we're going through against the entire grain of a lot of the Canucks podcast community with our conversation, but I'm okay with it because I don't know. We look at it differently, and I think that there's some fans that do look at this a little bit differently, and that's okay.
Well, I think there's more fans out there that just like to sit back and enjoy the ride and get some entertainment and cheer for wins, that we don't hear much about compared to the group of people that have all kinds of opinions on how the team should be managed. And they're not invalid opinions. They're valid opinions, but for a lot of people, I think they kind of want to see it the way we do. Let's see how this season progresses, and then let this new management team really get its hands on the steering wheel and make some changes in the off season.
And if we're kind of generalizing, like this whole like team tank versus like team playoffs or what have you, like it really just comes down to who is a pessimist and who's an optimist.
And there's a lot of pessimists in the Vancouver fan base, for good reasons, right? The history of the team is what it is.
Yeah, and it's just it's unfortunate too that there's people out there that just want to continue to drive home the same points over and over and over again instead of trying to like just watch the games and enjoy it. Because as frustrating as tonight was, you still saw some stuff. Watch Saturday. That was fun. That was a fun game to watch.
Oh, Saturday was a good night of hockey. We'll get into that.
Yeah. Well, and then the most important of the games on the trip was one of the ones that they won. So, or the only one they won in regulation, I guess. Do I have that right? 2-1-1, you guys said?
Yeah, 2-1-1. Yeah,
okay,
the one in Colorado.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's right. The Colorado game as well. Yeah, so, I mean, those are a couple of big ones there despite losing against St. Louis.
Yeah. Two other things I want to touch on here. The first one I hope takes 2 minutes at most. We'll see. Bruce Boudreau is back. There's no reason to go either further than this. Why is this even a discussion?
I would say that may have a little bit to do with comments Patrick Alvin made about him being under evaluation in the offseason. I think there's a little bit too much being made of that. I think that's just sort of an overarching general comment on how they're looking at the whole organization. And so, yes, I don't think they want to just put automatics next to certain people, but you'd have to think that Bruce Boudreau is going to be back, because what has he done to not deserve to be back, right? Like, I mean, he's obviously earned the opportunity to keep going with this team, so I don't think there's any doubt about it. But yeah, that was mentioned by Patrick Alvin, the general manager.
And like I said earlier, like this whole new management group wants to properly evaluate, and in their defense, Bruce came in before them. Like, yes, Rutherford essentially kind of signed off on the hiring of Bruce even before Rutherford was technically hired.
Yeah.
But they're basically taking all options in and seeing, is this the direction we want to go long term with our contention window, quote unquote.
Yeah, I guess part of the evaluation is let's assume they're going to extend him and not have him be a lame duck coach next year. The question then becomes, how solid are we on Bruce Boudreau and how much of a contract are we going to offer him? I think that's probably what the discussion will be.
And not only that, but Boudreau does kind of have a bit of a reputation of being an excellent regular season coach, but isn't really having a super solid time in the playoffs. So maybe that's part of that conversation as well.
Even more reason to want to see them make it.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. I look at it as it's just more this matchup team doesn't want to be rushed into making any decisions.
No. Yeah, exactly.
Same reason why they didn't do a fire sale at the trade deadline.
Yeah. Patience. They have they're going to take as much time as they have to make as many all these decisions. There's no reason to rush.
Yeah. Speaking of rushing and not rushing, I would like to give kudos to Aidan Mcdonagh. And I know that a lot of people are like, this is a 7th round pick. What's the big deal? But he made a decision that said that it was best for his hockey career, and that was to stay in Northeastern. Yeah. And I don't think it's any slight on the Vancouver Canucks, and I think that this is I love when people make a decision that is, not rushing the NHL. I want to spend more time in college. Kudos. It sounds like to me, like the way that they're negotiating, this could be, we talked about this sort of last week, one of these found money situations that the Canucks in. This could be, we don't know. I'm not saying that this guy's a core piece or anything like that, but it sounds like there's something there with Aidan Mcdonagh.
I think it is what it is. Like, he wasn't going to be a Brock Besser or a Quinn Hughes or even an Adam Gaudette coming straight out of college and getting NHL games and all that. I think he's going to be a little bit more of a project here. And you just have, again, patience. You gotta have patience with this. And his best friend is within the organization with Jack Rathbone. He will sign. For everything he said the last couple days, it sounds like he will sign with the Canucks after next season.
Yeah. Anything else that we want to touch on with the Canucks before we move on here?
Well, I think we had a couple questions in there that we haven't quite touched on. Has Demko worked his way into the Vezina conversation?
He's at least on the periphery of that discussion, and I think, again, it's going to depend on whether the Canucks fall out of the playoff chase or not.
Yeah, and what really kind of comes down to whether he makes it into the final 3 is really if the Canucks can push into the playoffs. Because, I agree, he's been top notch this season. He's been excellent. He's proven why he's our franchise goaltender. But
yeah, and if they do make it, it's going to be because of him, and that would put him in the the finalist.
But while we're still on the bubble of the playoffs, it's hard to kind of put him into the top 3, especially with how impressive the guys who are currently in the Vezina conversation have played this season.
Yeah. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Is it not the general managers that vote on the Vezina?
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I'm sure he's on everybody's radar.
And I think realistically, there's 2 spots on the nominations that are locked up right now, and that's with Markstrom and Shesterkin. We're just talking about that 3rd spot right now.
Yeah,
and Saros has played good enough that he currently is probably in that 3rd position.
See, Saros is right there.
Markstrom's not on my ballot. Anderson is in Carolina.
Yeah, Freddie Anderson should be up there. That's why it's like he's right. He is right there. Yeah. And
my three are Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, and Anderson. With all due respect to Mark.
Yeah, Vasilevsky. Yeah, let's tip our cap to him for sure. Yeah.
I don't see Vasilevsky in the same there. He's got such a strong team in front of him, and I don't know. I'll give Anderson a better opportunity there. Markstrom, Saros, Demko. Then you throw in, you got Shesterkin. You throw in, they won't get there, but Sorokin and Vanacek are having great seasons as well.
Vanacek had a really tough night tonight.
Well, yeah, every goalie has tough nights.
I'm just talking. When I saw the highlight, I was like, oh, he had a tough night. Anyway,
I think Demko's probably in the conversation for top 5 right now.
Yeah, in the conversation for sure.
Yeah. And then the other one would be, where's Boudreau in the Jack Adams convo? Is he sort of similar, like basically right?
The same as
Demko?
Yeah, the same reason that you can discount Demko being in the conversation, you can use the same argument against Boudreau. That being said, I feel like there's almost a little bit more shade, I guess, at Boudreau if he's not in the conversation, just because of how the effect he's had on this team.
Yeah,
but yeah, and I think this goes into the dovetails quite nicely into the last one here for the Canucks. I mean, it's tough to really say now with Edmonton up 5-1 on Arizona. Could they not be a wild card team and still make the playoffs? Could they be a third place team in the Pacific? I think that's a big ask, but
they have 3 games against Vegas. They have one more against St. Louis. They have one more against Dallas, and their final game is against Edmonton. So the opportunity is there. It's not like they're not playing these teams. They have to win these games. So the opportunity is there. That's why I put it in the agenda. And we'll touch on this in a little bit here, just to tease that. I, again, have to just question what this Oiler team is. Wonderful. They're winning 5-1. Congratulations. But I don't know how good this team is. I'm sorry.
They're winning 5-1 on Arizona.
Yeah.
But then they'll also lose 9-5 against a really strong playoff team. So,
yeah.
Well,
yeah.
However, let's not mock them too much. I mean, they are ahead of the Canucks in the standings with games in hand. So
yeah, that's true. What I'll say is
remember the context.
What I'll say is they have the Canucks have the opportunity to, because they have games against these teams, to make hay. It's the question is whether they make hay or not. Let's hope they do.
Yeah. More likely catching Vegas for the wild card spot as it sits right now.
Yeah, that's true. If there's ever any question as to why I'm on Team Optimist, hey, Sean, can you pull up my dad's comment?
What do we got here? Oh, double clutched. There we go.
Yeah, love the way this team turned their season around and keeps battling for the playoff spot. A couple months ago, who would have predicted it? It was a Francesco Aquilini tweet, and at least the owner isn't upset with the team.
Did he tweet after a loss? Is this
no?
Oh, okay.
That must have been a couple games ago. Okay. As for Chris's dad, he's just he's just enjoying the run, and I think that's all I hope for people here and for Canucks fans. Enjoy the run. It may not turn out the way we want it, but they've put themselves in a position where we are watching games and we're not hate watching them. This isn't a fucking death march like it was last season and what we thought this season was going to be.
If you would have asked any Canuck fan in November if these games in late March and early April were going to be meaningful, everyone would have told you were crazy. So the fact that we're here says a lot.
Yeah.
Yep. All right, let's do the Pig and Duke thing here, and I want to make sure we get one more quick announcement in, and then we're going to move on to other NHL. So, Sean, go ahead.
All right, so yeah, we have partnered up with the Pig and Duke pubs here in Calgary. They've got 2 locations where you can join their Pig and Puck Club that we are a part of. The downtown location of 503 4th Ave Southwest, and the neighborhood pub at 1312 12th Ave Southwest. Members of the Pig and Puck Club can get game day specials when they go and watch Canucks and Flames games at either locations. And members are also able to enter a draw for tickets to the April 23rd game at the Saddle Dome between the Flames and Canucks. At the Pig and Duke, you can get their pub beer, their pub life beers, their house beers, which is a lager and a copper beer. Us at the Shifts and Pucks podcast, we have 2 tickets to give away as part of the Pig and Puck Club, and you can enter a draw for them by retweeting any of our episodes or pod clips on Twitter or DMing us the word of the week on Twitter or Facebook. Any retweet will gain you 1 entry, and any DM of the word of the week will gain you 3 entries. This is the last week that we're gonna do a word of the week here and gain entries, because we're gonna give people time to figure out logistics to get to Calgary if you're not in Calgary for this. But the word of the week for this,
I want to do it. I have never done this.
All right, Kev.
You just hand it off to Sean. You let him do all the hard work and then say, I'm taking it back now.
No.
Okay.
I never get to do the word of the week. He did the right. I still give him all the credit for that. But the word of the week should be Canada.
Yes.
I'm totally okay with that.
Yeah.
All right, yes. The word of the week is Canada because guess what, world? We're coming for you.
We're going to Qatar.
We're going to fucking Qatar. Let's fucking go. So yeah, word of the week is Canada. And we want to thank Joe and Steven and everyone at the Pig and Duke for supporting the podcast. And we want to, again, congrats on 10 years here in Calgary. And Chris, I know you'll miss the Pig and Duke after you leave Calgary, so. but Devin and I will definitely make sure to have a beer for you every time we go there. And yes, on April 23rd at that game, you will see myself and you'll see Devin, and we're hoping you'll see Chris. You'll see Chris as well if you win those tickets.
It's kind of up in the air right now. I'm doing my best to make sure I can still make the trip, but yeah, it's still kind of a work in progress.
Life happens, but yes, word of the week is Canada. Retweet any of our pod clips or episodes to get entries as well, and we will be making a draw here within the next week or so.
Mm-hmm. That's right. And I just want to make sure that you catch last week's episode. Ryan Pinder was on our Flames podcast, and he gave a shout out to the Amped Advantage. Check out the Amped Advantage, Devin's gym in Calgary. It's pretty close to the Pig and Duke. So check out his endorsement actually on that. I hope to get that clip. I meant to get that clip up for this podcast, but we'll have it up for the next one as well. But that will be something that you'll hear. So Ryan Pinder endorses Devin. You should too. That's a great tagline. Speaking of Ryan, speaking of Calgary, it was a night. It was in Calgary. I mean, I know that we're talking Canucks here, but I think that it does actually affect in a lot of ways Canucks and the Pacific Division and hockey. And it was the first night that the Flames and Oilers were able to play in front of a full crowd. The crowd had a hell of a time. And I guess apparently there was, according to Daryl Sutter, there was a hat sale in Leduc, and they were able to toss him there. Daryl with another one of his quotes. But
classic Daryl.
It was a game. Calgary beat Edmonton 9-5.
Calgary was doing some Dolly Parton work.
Yes,
working 9
to 5. It was quite a way to make a living. One of those. I don't know where to really go with this, but I mean, I know, Tyler, you wanted to say you don't want to mock the Oilers, but it just felt like to me the same damn Oiler team that keeps coming up. And when it comes down to the chips are down, Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Darnell Nurse were combined minus 21. And yes, the goaltending was, Mike Smith was not good. Mikko Koskinen wasn't good either, but I felt like Smith's goals were worse than Koskinen's because, like, Johnny, there was the one, the Kachuk pass, Johnny just made a goal. Johnny made an incredible pass. Like, just that was world-class pass on one of those goals. But, man, it just feels like the Oilers are with the same old Oilers. Same old.
It's only a matter of time before they come back, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, and no matter what the coach is, they just keep doing the same thing. And yeah, I watched a bit of the Arizona-Edmonton game, just flipped for a second. I just watched Leon Draisaitl again, and part of me wants to call him Pouty McPouty Face. Like, just I'm sorry.
Why are you so pissy, Leon?
Yeah. Well, Kevin Moore used pissy at Leon.
He just rubs me the wrong way. Like, yeah, he gets a hat trick. But if you watch and you look at the stats, Elias Lindholm dominated him. Like, just ran, like, sure, he's going to win the Rocket Richard. He's going to win the Art Ross and all of these sort of things. Just, I just look at that Oilers team, and I don't think this organization ever gets it. They just seem to want to win with this 9-5, 9-6 mentality, get all these points, and it's as much as they want to do it, it's not working.
That all that being said, I think we'll get into more Oilers bashing on Wednesday probably. I maybe I'm just over it. I just was so happy to see the dome rocking.
Yeah.
I was so happy to see how loud it was. And the only thing missing was a goalie fight.
Well, we almost got a half goalie fight.
And as far as like raucous arena and having a good time, like Devin was actually at that game, and I want to say he probably had just as good of a time as I did in Vancouver for that 7-1 win.
Yeah, that was great. That's that is that's the fun part of all this is just great to see that rivalry. And I mean, everybody wants to see that rivalry again, and it would be a lot of fun and possible for sure.
Yeah.
And of course, after that game, everyone's just salivating for if that could be the first round of Battle of Alberta.
I don't think my voice or liver could handle that. And I'm not a fan of either of those teams.
Yeah.
Like Heidi was joking at me. Like I was more vocal during that game. Like I already watched the Canucks have a big win, and Demko be ridiculous. In Dallas, which was a huge win in Dallas, and then you have that cherry on top of a great night of hockey, and just then you throw in everything on Sunday too.
Yeah, a great sports weekend.
Yeah, for sure. It was a lot of fun. The GM meetings are on this week. I know that's probably seems a lot of boring nonsense, but there is a couple of things that I think are going to be brought up that I think are important. The first is officiating, which is always brought up, and part of me wants to roll eyes. And the other one is the issue around LTIR. Of course, Nikita Kucherov and the LTIR, 18 million over the cap. But let's also be honest. Just for me, like, good on Evgeny Dadonov to rebound and play the way that he has for Vegas. But sorry, Dylan, come on. The Ducks should not be allowed to trade a guy that hasn't played a game in like 904 years in Ryan Kessler. And that has to be addressed. That to me has to be addressed as well.
I agree with that, but also isn't that exactly what happened with Pronger with his contract?
That whole thing is like it's the whole thing with injured players and all that and how they store it and all. I don't like it at all. And it's the same. We're going to trade him to Arizona so Arizona can get to the cap floor.
Yeah.
And because they won't put him on LTIR. They'll just put him on injured reserve. Like that. I don't like how you can wiggle around. I think it's stupid. I think it's just it cheats the system. The whole point of the cap floor is so that you don't have teams like that are like Arizona who are basically dumping grounds for bad contracts and contracts that like they use to get to the like it's a loophole that should be closed. And the same thing with like when you get it where I don't like the amount of loopholes that there are. And it's just it frustrates me. And I hope they find a way to close them.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
The issue with LTIR being a discussion point now, I guess, in particular, is how the Lightning and Nikita Kucherov in particular were rubbing it in. So there was already some skepticism about their use of the LTIR and how injured was he really. But now you have to start really questioning it when you see them flagrantly rubbing it in people's faces. Clearly, other general managers weren't going to be thrilled with that. And Elliot Friedman and Jeff Merrick talked about this on Saturday night in the second intermission. So we'll see what ends up happening there. There's no easy answers, though. I mean, the LTIR is there for a reason, and it's mostly used for a good reason. And any kind of change there has got to be collectively bargained. So I'm sure this will be a saga that drags on for a while.
And you can also argue the fact that Vegas is kind of also trying to use the loophole in that same vein with the whole trying to get Eichel activated. And then ultimately with what they're trying to do with Dadonov, so that way they could, eventually bring back some other players.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point. Is like the LTIRs, the whole point of it is so that you can still dress a full roster when you lose players. It's not just so that you can stash cap here, there, and everywhere and find a way to put together a fantasy team. No, that's not how that works. The whole point of the cap is to limit spending, and they've tried. It is cap circumvention. It's cap circumvention that the NHL has allowed.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, though. If Tampa Bay missed the playoffs with Nikita Kucherov on LTIR the entire season, does anybody have a problem with it? No, right?
Is the fact that the cap doesn't count in the playoffs, which is...
Yeah, it's convenient that they still had a good enough team without him that they could get to the playoffs and now trot him out.
And they weren't the only team. They weren't the first team to do it. The Canucks did it back in 2011. We had in a different way. The Hawks.
Was that a Sammy Salo injury, if I recall?
You're talking that yeah, I think you're talking to Salo injury.
Yeah,
there.
and Patrick Kane was on LTIR until the playoffs. During one season, the issue is that when you basically thumb your nose.
It's the gloating.
Yeah, because it was the same. I think that's one of the reasons why it's one of the reasons why they closed down that and put in that retroactive bullshit cap recapture penalty. And
that the Canucks are the only victim of.
By the way, I look forward to this time next year when Sean can stop talking about that.
But it was because they said don't do this anymore, and then you had teams still do it, and that's why they did it.
Yeah,
it's the thumbing your nose at the authority, and we all know Gary likes to be the smartest man in the room. And when he doesn't feel that way, guess what? He's going to lash out. And I have a feeling he's going to lash out with this.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the other thing is because this is a collectively bargained part of the business of hockey now. So whether or not they'll have to figure something out that the PA will also be willing to accept. And for me, yeah, you can. If a player gets injured, yes, you should be able to replace them, especially in the off season, and put them on LTR. But you shouldn't be allowed to trade them for another team to create that cap space. That's my biggest issue.
Well, especially if they haven't played and they're basically have retired. They just haven't said that they're retired, right? We know Ryan Kessler's not going to play again, and the quite likely reason that he goes to Arizona is to hang out with some of the 4,000 fans that will be in that new arena and just shake hands and, maybe be a promotional tool or whatever, but he's not going to be on the ice. And that part to me is frustrating. Like with Vegas, there are players that are legitimately injured and I don't know if they're coming back. I know that they activated Alec Martinez, but he apparently was hurt, but they don't know about Pacioretty. They don't know about Stone. It does sound like there's some legitimate injuries there. But I guess we'll have to find out. It's just,
but the other thing is they put themselves in this position by making that Eichel trade and not moving out salary beforehand.
Yep. Because they thought they could do it by the trade deadline.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then not only that, they fumbled it at the trade deadline.
Yeah.
They pulled the Seattle Seahawks in the Super Bowl, unfortunately. Sorry, Chris.
That's a reference that really hurts.
And Kevin, by the way.
Oh, guys.
No, it's true, though, but
yeah, but that's that is part of the game now. You have to manage the cap properly, and if you don't, you shouldn't get a get out of jail free card.
Yeah.
And if they're going to make a trade for someone. If they're going to try and trade someone to free up cap, that player's season is over. I just want to clarify. We talked about this last week about it, and we found the actual rule is yes, if a player gets traded after the deadline, they cannot play that season. Mm-hmm. And is that fair to a player like Dadnoff or anyone else who would.
Yeah. Clearly not.
let alone it's past the deadline. You shouldn't be able to find a way to again circumvent the cap past the deadline.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It's a situation they definitely have to fix. Final topic we'll get into here before we have some other personal stuff to get into as well. Tonight, John Shorthouse, John Garrett and Dan Murphy were in St. Louis. I think that's great that they're finally being Sportsnet anyway is allowing their announcers, their broadcasters to be at the rink of the game. And I think it's there to me as a watcher. It's much different, and I could feel the frustration from the play-by-play broadcaster that is watching from the room in Toronto when they're not catching everything. It's a very frustrating. I can feel it. It's a frustrating experience, and I hope that this continues full on, and I also hope it continues for the radio guys because I think that let's let the atmosphere is a part of the story of the game. If you don't believe me, you look back in that Florida-Tampa series last year. That was all about atmosphere and how we all missed it. And then it came back in a way that adds to it. And to me, this is, and I think it's important to have this conversation because, sometimes with the penny pinchers in the big corporate world of Rogers, they want to save money. And one of the ways, if they can save money on not having traveling broadcasters, that would be great for them. But I got to tell you, that is an error. It is a serious mishap to the audience making that decision. They should be traveling to the game.
Yeah, well, it was quite noteworthy how many times Cheech had to bring it up tonight. It was not so subtly mentioned how they were on the road again, and I don't think that's a coincidence. But one of the challenges for the play-by-play guys in particular is that, it's their voice that's broadcast out there to the world, and they want to still do a great job. But as time has gone on, they've actually been doing a better job of managing calling off monitor, and they're kind of hurting themselves in the process, right? Like the better the job they do, the more likely it is that
a company like Rogers is going to be like, well, do we really have to?
Yeah, right. So I don't know how all that we can do are amongst ourselves and just people that watch is just keep putting the pressure on Sportsnet to deliver a quality broadcast and just not tolerate it.
Well,
I'll even put it as good as they can be off the monitor. Go back to Saturday when it was a goal, the goal non-goal thing right off the start of the game. Yeah. Where it went off the post, and unfortunately Shorty had to thought it was a goal because he had to read it. He was off a monitor and had to read it based off of the goal light guy and the horn and everything. He couldn't see it. Yeah, because if you're calling it from a broadcast gondola or any broadcast like normal broadcast spot, you would most of those play-by-play announcers would be able to see that wasn't in.
Fair.
Well, and again, go back to Saturday and go back to Sunday. The atmosphere at that Flames Oilers game enhanced the play-by-play. The atmosphere at BMO Field in Toronto when Canada was going to the World Cup, that just added to it. Like it just simply how does it not?
It does, and having the play-by-play the person calling the game feeling that energy is huge. I went into work today. My boss is a massive footy fan. He has season tickets to the Cavalry FC here in Calgary, and is just huge. Like been following the Canadian national men's team for this whole qualification process. And he's just like, this is like a top that, like, I was sitting at home and it was a top 3 sporting event of my lifetime. And a lot of it was because of that atmosphere. Chris, you were up in Edmonton for that game against Mexico, the Ice Teca Bowl.
Yes, and such a great game.
Again, you feeling that there's something that and a good announcer, a good play-by-play announcer, a good color commentator, they can portray that the energy, but really well. But you can't do that if you're separated from it. And like I got it from logistical standpoints when a lot of the production staff were getting left behind in certain cities and across the border, away from their families. But we're almost past that now, and I think we need to start getting back to what was normal beforehand. What makes the bet game better, but when you have people feel that atmosphere. Kevin, you're a play-by-play guy for minor hockey, and when you have a good atmosphere where you've got a rowdy crowd, does that make it? I'm sure you do your best to make sure that you can help communicate that to the listener.
Yeah, I mean, I'm getting better at trying to acclimatize myself to all of that. I mean, we didn't have a large crowd, like we didn't have 20,000 people in the room in the arena or anything like that, and we were off in a kind of a quieter space. But I mean, as the game in the playoffs, the game's not more intense. I got a bit more animated or get more intense and involved in the game for sure. That it's the energy that you navigate towards that. It's part of it. It's easy to call names. It's not easy to describe the feeling. That's the difference.
Is it fair to say that we're starting to lose that in all of sports right now? Because there's so much access to information and data that we focus so much on that, and we've lost that ability to tell a story without it coming across as cheesy as fuck.
I think in regular season play, when you got so many games to do and so many of them are often kind of duds, yes, but in the playoffs, no, I don't think we're losing that in the playoffs. I think the urgency of the competition and the intensity and the atmosphere lends itself to more of what we are used to in the past.
I just want to add in though, now that they've finally allowed Shorty and Cheech and Murph to make the trip down to the States, let's also free Batch and Hershey.
Yeah,
that's the radio guys need to go too. But
the radio guys are even more important in terms of being able to portray the atmosphere too, because you can hear it in the background, but you can't see it. And the whole point of a play-by-play, especially on the radio, is to give more, to make it so that you can visualize it better.
Yeah.
What's really appalling about Rogers, not to get on too big of a tangent here, but they're planning on not sending their radio broadcast on the road this season, at least to start with. And I mean, it's their own product
for their own, for the Jays, you mean?
Yeah, it's their own team.
Yeah.
That's mind-boggling. Apparently, the TV guys will be traveling, but I don't. And with radio, like, you don't need a big technical crew to go with you. It's really like a two-man show in the case of the Blue Jays, because it's just one announcer. You basically need the announcers and one technical guy and carry around a small amount of equipment. It's not. So I don't know. I don't understand it. And just because Shorty and Cheech and Murph were there tonight doesn't mean they won't be back calling it off the tube at some point before the regular season's over. But come the playoffs, there'll be probably it would be a public relations disaster for Sportsnet if they were covering Canadian teams in the U.S. in the playoffs and not on site for those games.
Well, Derek Wills talked about this on Saturday. He's the play-by-play guy for the Flames, and he talked about how 19,000 fans help him call the game. Like, that atmosphere is so much, it's easier to call the game. So, yeah, I understand. Like, I understand the whole idea. I mean, I understand saving money, but you got to let people do their job, and you have to be able to do their job in the rink. Like it's not the same as it is on the monitor. And I maybe am hoping that someone with some management influence in Sportsnet watches this and like they hear this, like it's not good for the product, and it's not good for the audience that you are doing this.
Yeah, they're just taking the viewer for granted, basically because they can. And in a lot of cases, people don't even notice. I mean, we're the kind of people that would, but a lot of people don't. So they're trying to get away with it.
Yeah. I want to close with Melynk, but we do have some stories to cover. Tyler, you officiated at the Coy Cup.
Yeah, not just officiated. I got to kind of do both, officiate and supervise. So what is the Coy Cup? For those that don't know, it's the senior men's AA provincial championship in BC. It's one of the oldest trophies that gets handed out, at least in this province. I think they started presenting it in the 1920s, if I'm not mistaken. Somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but it's got a very long history. It's the second time. No, I think it's the third time the Coy Cup actually has been contested here in Terrace. This year, a little bit of a different deal. Normally, it's a 4-team event involving different league champions and a host, kind of like the Memorial Cup format, an 8-game week-long event. Under the current circumstances, with not all the leagues running, they decided on having it be a best of 3 between the Central Interior Hockey League champion, which was the Terrace River Kings, and then other teams that wanted to qualify through a separate process. So that put the Dawson Creek Canucks, who had won the 2 Coy Cup championships prior to the pandemic against the Terrace River Kings, who have been trying to get their first one, and it was arranged fairly quickly. So I got a call from BC Hockey to asking me to organize the officials. So it was an honor just to be asked to do that, and also given the blessing to use our group here that's been doing senior hockey all season long. And it's important for us, and that's why I wanted to talk about this too, because in past Coy Cups, usually what happens is there's some local contingent of officials, but they bring in guys from other parts of the province as well that are really terrific officials, high-level officials, and there's great benefit in doing that. For me, myself, this couple of times in the past, getting to work with those guys has helped me develop as a referee and learn from them. But at the same time, that it's also left some of the local guys that have been grinding it out during the regular season on the sidelines for that event. So it was really satisfying in this case to have a group of 8 guys from our league here do this. We had a crew of 4 that included myself for game 1 on Friday night, which the River Kings won 4-3. Different crew on Saturday night. That one won 2-1 by Dawson Creek to even the series and force a third game. But the guys on Saturday, they did an outstanding job, and they earned the opportunity to do the third and deciding game. So it was very satisfying for me to sit back and watch them do another great job on Sunday. And Dawson Creek did take that third game 3-0 to three-peat for the Coy Cup. So for the hockey fans in Terrace, they actually back-to-back weekends of some pretty impressive senior hockey. Not only the Coy Cup, but prior to that, the final 2 games of the CI Championship. So it's been quite the journey, and I think for the River Kings, probably the 5 games in an 8-day span was a bit of a factor in them falling short for that trophy. But congratulations to the Dawson Creek Canucks on another Coy Cup, and just being out on the ice for the first game. I mean, we kind of get used to seeing the senior teams in our league all the time, and then now you bring in another really strong one, and I've heard about them, but I've never seen their games or officiated their games. So it was quite interesting, and boy, it was like they were shot out of a cannon there on Friday night. The speed was quite something. It felt to me like doing a level of hockey I hadn't been to before. So it was great fun for the fans, and it was really rewarding for us as an officiating group. So I just wanted to give the guys the tip of the cap for that.
And we talked about Canada and Qatar. I wanted to make sure that we give a congratulations to the Vancouver Northeast Chiefs for winning the male BC U18 BCE. I always butcher this, but it's the U18 BCEHL AAA championships. They won on Saturday. They beat the Northwest Hawks by a final score of, as I pull this up here, of 4-2. The Northeast Chiefs almost got knocked out by the Greater Vancouver Canadians actually last week. They were down in game 3. They were down in game 2 as well, and they came back and they have won the championship, so they get to go on. And I wanted to also give a shout out to the female team that won the U18 championship, and that was the Fraser Valley Rush. They beat the Northern Capitals 3-2. Take that series, so they get to move on and play Edmonton in the next round. So good luck for that. And someone tweeted this out. I'm going to just put this tweet out there. Do we have a schedule for the Max Major tournament yet? Because that is coming up toot sweet. We haven't seen anything yet, so I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, wasn't that the first week of April? I thought I heard. Okay, well, it's upon us very soon. Yeah.
Well, let's see here. The schedule drops on Wednesday.
Okay. We'll make a mention on that on Wednesday. Anything else we need to touch on?
I think that covered everything.
No,
Bring on the world. Let's go, Canada.
Just nice to be able to put that X next to Canada and say that our men's national footy team has qualified. It's very exciting, and we can't wait to see how they do in Qatar. The draw is Friday morning. Never has a World Cup draw been of greater interest in this country.
Yeah, and go ahead, Sean.
They've got one more game against Panama, and if they can win, they have a better chance of the better draw. And if they get a good draw, if they get a good draw and a good pool,
watch out.
Like they could get out of the group. Yeah, and if they get out of the group, holy crap.
Imagine what the FIFA ranking could be.
Yeah, and I just want to touch on that. For those that don't know, it's not so much the placing in the CONCACAF standings. It is your FIFA ranking. So that loss to Costa Rica did hurt Canada's FIFA ranking. So if they can get a win against Panama, and if Costa Rica can lose their final qualifying match, that'll help Canada's placing in the final FIFA ranking heading into the draw. So still very crucial on Wednesday against Panama. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Well, and by the way, Joshua Griffith and Joshua Ray and all those guys at Area 51 did a recap at the end of that. I think Ben Getty was on, Nathan Durek was on that, I believe. So check that out as well. But we'll leave it here. We'll be back Wednesday to talk about the Calgary Flames as they had a big game against Edmonton. They have an interesting game against Colorado. Which I might rant on Flames fans a bit, but I'll save all that for Wednesday. How do we follow everyone?
I'm BetaConnect03 on Twitter.
And I'm on Twitter at TNoble, TNOBLE.
I am at Schneids on most social media.
Devin is at Gordhouse09. I am KEVOLE. Shifts and Pucks on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. As well as subscribe wherever you get your audio, and as well on the Area 51 Sports Network. Thanks, everyone, for watching and listening, and we will talk to you all very soon. And welcome soon to Chris in BC. Bye for now. And Hannah to BC. Bye for now.